good afternoon, everyone. My name is Jen. I am the Adult Services Department Head for the Saratoga Springs Public Library, and I'd like to welcome you to this afternoon's program, which is Start a Conversation, Create for Change in Saratoga. As I mentioned, I'm happy to be introducing this program, and it marks the start of a community initiative that we hope will bring a year long of discussion and creation of community art for social change and conversation. This initiative was born through a serendipitous conversation series with Julie Lewis of C.R.E.A.T.E Community Studios and I. And this past fall, we have been trying to talk about ways to bring both positive social change and art to our community. And during our discussion, we talked about the power of art to create meaning and change, and how any one of us can creatively work to address the needs of our community. So today, this initiative was born and kicks off today with this first community conversation that we hope will foster inspiration and encourage people to participate in meaning and art making throughout the year. I am grateful to Julie and C.R.E.A.T.E Community Studios, as well as our growing list of our community and artist partners for the opportunity to engage in this project with you. So welcome to everyone. And with that, I would like to introduce Julie Lewis to tell us a little bit more about C.R.E.A.T.E and introduce today's speakers. Thanks, Julie.
Thank you so much, Jen. Welcome, everyone. My name is Julie Lewis, and I'm the Saratoga Site Director for C.R.E.A.T.E Community Studios. I'm excited about the program we have this evening for you and to introduce you to some incredible artists and activists from the Capital Region who have been making change in their communities through art and expression. So first, I wanted to just tell you a little bit about C.R.E.A.T.E. I'm going to share my screen so you have a little bit of information. And hopefully I can do that, Jen. So I'll start talking a little bit about C.R.E.A.T.E. Just need to make sure I can share my screen. We established ourselves 3 years ago in Saratoga Springs and Schenectady as a nonprofit dedicated to providing a space where the benefits of art making impact both the individual and the community as a whole. We offer low-cost and no-cost workshops, groups, community wellness activities, and open studios to promote art making and the creative process as a vehicle for personal growth, communication, and social change. Our acronym stands for Capital Region Expressive Arts, Transformation, and Empowerment. And we're founded by a group of art therapists, artists, educators, and activists who have a passion for making the expressive arts and community arts accessible to all. So this evening, I'm going to introduce you to several artists who have been working in the Capital Region on some incredible community art projects and who are extremely passionate about sharing their voices and sharing their love for the expressive arts with their community members. And I'm going to share my screen now. Thank you for your patience, everyone. So I have a slideshow that I'm going to work our way through here to just share a little bit about what art for social change means. And then we're going to get a chance to meet each artist and look at some of the projects, as I said before, that they've been working on. So here are our 2 studios in the Capital District, our studio in Schenectady, as well as our studio in Saratoga on Beekman Street. Currently, we have some limited openings for community art programs, and we're also holding some programs on Zoom. So you've got our information there to take a look at what we're offering. And I wanted to talk a little bit about what Art for Social Change is and how it's different from other community arts. So Art for Social Change is art with a vision and an intentional analysis. It's an artistic or creative cultural practice, and it can come through traditional or non-traditional mediums, modes, and disciplines. And it usually is art with a vision that impacts people. So it's there to raise consciousness, to alter how we think about ourselves, our society, and our culture, to create a vision of a more just world, to be a tool or a strategy for organizing and movement building, to preserve or reclaim traditional cultural practices using artistic practice as a form of resistance or empowerment, to create space for expression and build a sense of community, and to challenge some of our social issues like racism, classism, sexism, homophobia, transphobia, ageism, ableism, and other oppressions. Typically, this type of art questions the mainstream culture and beliefs. It works as an agent to shift or transform the perception of power or privilege and the dynamics associated with justice. And it engages and utilizes a reciprocal process. And I think in the artist's work that you see today, you'll see some of that reciprocity, that exchange between the artist and the community members as a real powerful part of community art. And community-based art is really creative expression that emerges from the community and the people in the community working together, both with their individual and collective experiences. So we hope that what you see is inspirational for creating some more of this type of work in our own communities. There are lots of examples of artists who have used their own art for social change or awareness of social issues. Diego Rivera, Banksy, Kara Walker, Keith Haring, and Jacob Lawrence are just some examples of artists that have used their work to speak about important social issues. Some of these artists have worked in a capacity where they've engaged their communities, and others have just have made their art for display in public spaces to make a statement. These are a couple of examples of murals that C.R.E.A.T.E Community Studios has engaged in making in the Capital District. And we're going to show you a few more at the end if we have a little more time. But I would like now to introduce you to Marcus Anderson. And Marcus is Marcus is an artist, an illustrator, and an art instructor from the Capital District. And he's here to tell us a little bit about his work and some of his current passions in community art. Welcome, Marcus Anderson.
Thank you, Julie. Yeah, hi everyone. Glad to be here. Yeah, as Julie mentioned, I'm Marcus Anderson. You know, some people in the community know me as Marcus Kwame, my middle name. And I've been making art all my life, and I'm very passionate about it. Some of these images that you see right here are from a community mural that I, facilitated and was the a lead artist on in Troy. It's at you could find it in the public housing that's at the end of River Street, like the art district in Troy. Basically, if you keep going, there's those high-rise buildings, and this is under the bridge by the basketball courts. But I've always, like I said, been passionate about the arts in my own respect. I've worn a lot of hats as both a teacher, a painter, and an illustrator. And I did, this mural came about I want to say like maybe 12 years or 10 years ago, I would say. And I worked with a group called Troy Alley Action. And their mission was to engage the community and also take back public spaces and use the arts as similar to what we're speaking about here today, but use the arts as a something to basically allow people in the community to feel ownership over their space. And so for this project, I met with the residents of the houses, the Taylor houses in Troy, and we just talked about ideas before any artwork started. And they had seen some of my artwork, and so people there, they drew some inspiration from things that I had already done. They had some ideas of things that they wanted. So I took the ideas from that meeting and that discussion and just used it to kind of sketch some things and figure out a composition. So it was very like community oriented from the start, because we just really wanted to make sure there are some projects where, community art projects where artists just throw something up, and there's some where, for me, I like the model where you engage the community, where you actually make sure that the people who are living with whatever's on the walls are really on board with it. And it's not a matter of artists coming in and injecting themselves. So anyway, here in a lot of these pictures, you see a lot of the people who kind of came together to make this happen. As a lead artist, I did sketches, and we kind of had some loose outlines that we projected onto the walls. And then we came up with a kind of a color coding number system so that people could paint, like regardless of their artistic background. You know, some people were very experienced in art, some people had none, but it was the type of thing where everyone was able to come in and contribute, you know, whatever their background may be. It was just a lot of fun. So, like, you know, you see, these are just some of the people who we had working on it, and it's pretty cool because every now and then, like a lot of these kids that you see here, they were in high school at the time, but sometimes, you know, up until today, I've bumped into somebody who's a grown adult, and they're like, "Oh yeah, I remember you from the mural." You know what I mean? So it's cool. It was, and I always talk to them about the fact that, like, this is something that's, you know, a part of your city that you had a hand in, you know. So yeah, it was cool. These are two of my paintings that I've done just myself. The Billie Holiday painting here actually was on display. This piece is it's behind me, but it's 4 feet by 6 feet, and there was a local artist, art gallery owner, Deborah Lacroix in Troy, who had there was a point at which the boarded up windows on Proctor's in Troy, they had been enlisting artists to, you know, paint boards so that there was more than just, you know, blank boards on there, and to beautify the walls. And that was originally what caught the eye of one of the people from Troy Alley Action, where we made the connection. So yeah, long story short, I love to paint, you know, and this is some more of my artwork. These are some of my drawings, and the book cover in the middle is actually from a book that I illustrated. I've been working on for the last year, and this book's actually going to be released tomorrow. It's a graphic novel about the Black Panther Party, nonfiction, and so yeah. So like I said, I wear a lot of hats artistically, but these are just, you know, some of the things that I do. But I'm very I love working publicly in art with people, and, you know, in the community. And I feel like I have been blessed throughout my life that people saw that I loved art when I was a kid, and they supported me in moving forward to continue making art. And I just like to pass that on to other people. So,
Thank you so much, Marcus. We appreciate your being here, and we appreciate your art.
thanks.
So next, I'd like to introduce Jade Warwick. Jade is one of the founders of Amplified Voices. She's a designer, an artist, and activist in the Albany area. And Jade, would you like me to start off with sharing the video, or would you like to start off with some of your own introduction?
A little introduction first, and then the video, since that will lead into the program a little bit more, if that works for you.
Perfect.
Awesome. So thank you. As Julie said, my name is Jade Warwick. Originally from Los Angeles, kind of a travel wanderlust, came from Houston a little while ago, probably about 4 years ago. So I've been based in the Capital Region for 4 years now. I would consider myself a Capital Region-based visual designer. My big focus is art accessibility and global design, and how to use art as a wellness tool, how to use art as a tool to bring wealth and cultural equity into communities of color. Is specifically my focus, and has been my focus for the past several years. I really just want to figure out a way to create art programs specifically for youth, and use these art programs to teach youth of color and the LGBTQ+A community, to just teach these youth how to use art to validate themselves, and how to use art to bring cultural equity into their community, and how to use art to just really uplift and validate the invisible voices. So that's pretty much what my goal is as an artist right now. I'm an illustrator and do murals. I have a mural on Broadway at Albany. It's a giant mural you may have seen on downtown Albany and Broadway. And I do a little bit of illustration and a little bit of marketing and a little bit of painting here and there. But currently my main focus has been really trying to build youth art programs within the community to bring up that culture and that validation, you know, cultural equity and validation within those communities. You can go with the video if you want for the intro for Amplified Voices. It's about a 4 or 5 minute long video just going into what Amplified Voices is.
Voice and power, judging, connecting, superpower. So when we come here, we're talking about things that really matter. We're talking about things that hurt people. We're talking about things that help people.
Having an art community for people of color and youth of color specifically is a huge gap that Albany seems to miss a lot. Amplified Voices was kind of fueled by passion and anger. Passion for me wanting to help in my community, anger at white artists kind of gentrifying spaces that I thought should be upheld for Black artists, considering that this is a civil rights movement involving mostly Black people and people of color.
Arts and crafts is what we think arts is in school, but healing and wellness is the most important aspect of teaching art. How do we communicate what's going on in our head? How do we express what we're feeling?
For the workshop that I facilitated, I really wanted the kids to generate their own ideas. So I asked a lot of questions. What is an activist? What is an artist? What is poetry? I wanted them to reach out into their imagination with language and have the language kind of ground them in what messages we wanted to convey in the mural.
We see the hand coming out of the ground. Our ancestors telling us we have to make the world different before people make it different in their own way.
If you are speaking on behalf of a community, maybe they should be included in the conversation too. Everyone had a part in the community of saying what the mural was going to be. Every aspect of the mural has an intention.
The roots leading up to Black freedom and those roots having words.
What about people who just passed due to the movement and stuff like that, who were a cause of movement, kind of
different areas,
George Floyd and stuff like that?
Everything that the adults are saying in these riots and these protests, these children were also saying it. This is their neighborhood, and there are a lot of political and social issues that are going on that can be overshadowed by adults. You don't have to be an adult to be an activist.
I've been through a lot in my young age. Whenever I was not in the mood to talk to anybody, I'd be able to express my art on paper. Black freedom means to me, no matter what color, race, you should be able to walk around the streets without having to be threatened by police.
I would like my community to know about me and people like me is that we're all our own people and we're all strong in what we do, and to not judge a book by its cover.
People think kids are too young to know anything and that they don't really know that much about stuff that's happening in the world, but we really do. I think it's important to amplify young Black and brown voices because we have a lot of important things to say and people could learn from what we say.
When people see the mural, I really want them to feel hope. Without hope, there can be no change. Without hope, people give up, and we can't give up right now. What we need to do is keep fighting. I think having something like this may be a breath of fresh air. I hope all these kids go away feeling that their lives matter and that they could use art as a device for activism.
If I ruled the world, I'd be the girl that I was meant to be. I'd care for more than what's right in front of me.
I would make it so people can express themselves as much or as little as they want.
I would change the things that set us apart. I would make a difference with my art.
I would want no one to be judged for what they do, look, or act.
I'd speak with the voice God gave me and the body in which He shaped me. For those who couldn't before me and the kids who couldn't afford to.
Everyone would be happy, not worrying about what they are doing.
I'd make my mama proud by helping the crowd. I would rid the world of hate and hope that things might change.
There would be laughter and happiness if I ruled the world.
Awesome. So thank you. So that's just an overview of the type of programs that I do. That's one of them. And that's the programs that I want to keep up with, is programs that really do highlight youth of color and really do aim to validate their voice while teaching them art fundamentals and how to use art as a multi-tool. Within my program, there's a mentorship program built into it. So my big thing with this program is keeping the local creatives involved and keeping that community engagement really high. So I always have mentors who are local, upstate, capital region artists who, like you saw in there, there's Dee Collins. I don't know if anyone's familiar with Dee Collins. She's a local poet and activist. I have Eugene O'Neill. He's a local fashion designer and muralist who's run other youth programs around the area himself. So I really do try to get other creatives of color to help mentor the youth that we're trying to teach. And also within that, there's also another, mentor level where we have junior mentors who are kids from past programs who we bring into future programs, so we can help, continue to build artistic skill, continue teaching, wellness and healing tools. We work with Rooted, which is a Black-owned yoga studio, I believe, in Pearl Street. We have Rooted as a part of our programming. They start every day with 30 minutes of meditation and wellness techniques of like how you could, just how you could take these wellness techniques from like yoga or meditation and involve that into not only your art, but just involve that into your daily life. That's also another, way of validating yourself, is just learning those healing techniques and meditation techniques and everything like that. So you'll see on the slide, that's just a little bit of images from past programs. We have Dee Collins, who is one of the mentors of that program, saging the whole place. We do take, taking these spaces sacred. We do take that seriously. We have a couple of our students in there signing their signature to the art. We have a couple with Mayor Sheehan. Mayor Sheehan usually comes to every Amplified Voices I've had so far, just to talk to the students and engage in some way. But at the end of the day, I just try to make programs or try to use art as a healing tool and a tool for validation for Black and brown voices.
Thank you so much, Jade.
Oh, cool. Oh, was I muted that whole time, I'm assuming?
No, you were not.
No, good. Okay, good. I was like, no, I saw the mute button.
I just did that accidentally. That was me. Okay, wonderful. And I'm going to introduce next Shayla Kerr. Shayla is a writer and activist from the Albany, Schenectady area. And she's going to share a little bit about herself and her medium of art. So welcome, Shayla.
Okay. Hi. Just one second. Hi. So my name's Shayla Kerr. I'm a writer. I do liberation work. And I'd say that work surrounds shifting the narrative in many ways that I've done. So I've always been really into stories and very in love with stories in any form: plays, movies, books, video games, whatever. And I was always very passionate about that, and was also very passionate about social change, and was always really in awe when I learned about the civil rights movement growing up and other liberation movements, about how people can create change through connection and unity. And I didn't really see many ways of that growing up, and like now I'm exploring that. So I'll get into it. So what you see on the right is I was, well, first I'll start with, I was in a play in high school called Fires in the Mirror, where it was a play about a Haitian boy who got hit by a car and died by another Jewish man. And it was around many perspectives around that narrative. And then after I had discussions with the audience and cast about that, so people from the community and the cast was also from the Skanky community, and just had some real discussions around race and social change. And that's what I did a lot of my senior year and junior year of high school. Senior year, I was president of Roots Club, a small club. Well, it started small, and then it in 2016, and it grew, and it kind of just centered around Black students discussing race, social change, and their perspectives, and what that was like being in school and education. And that just grew into how we did that with art. We did it with spoken word. We did that with eventually putting on art shows. We did multiple murals around the school. If you're familiar with Skanky High School, you probably know the famous Obama mural in the main hallway, which is designed by Nicola Dutre, the moderator of the club. So I would say, like, essentially, like, a lot of my work is around how we use these stories to change the narrative, and that has taken off in many different forms. So I'd say, like, as a base as a writer, but I've done a lot of different work surrounding that. And my recent work has been my personal essay, When You're the Only One Watching the World Burn, where I recently was studying occupational therapy at SUNY Buffalo. And then with the recent uprisings, it just kind of sparked in me again how I really am passionate about social change at the end of the day, and using art as a vehicle to do that, and creativity to do that. And so that's what into that recent work. So yeah, so here on the left is actually a fundraiser for C.R.E.A.T.E a couple years ago, probably reading some poems. Again, helping, I feel like C.R.E.A.T.E is also involved in shifting the narrative and pushing for how we can use art for social change and to change our perspectives, and again to give hope and life into our communities, to speak and fight for what we deserve, really, and for what a lot is going down right now. And on the right is a mural that students from the club and some who just come from around the school and just start painting with us, where we ask students to vote for who they would like on the walls, that students themselves from the club, they would type up, and then students from around the school, they just put their names down on whoever they thought should go up on the wall, and whoever had the most votes based on the theme we had going on. I think that was for Women's History Month, and I think the Obama mural was for Black History Month, but we had different themes going on. So that's one example. And then that was my senior year, where me and other students, we put up for the first time an art show designed by other students and curated by other students. And so essentially it was a huge success, but was also like made me so passionate and like so inspired, because the premise for that show was to use that space for the first time to reflect the perspectives and voices and stories of students who are actually in Skanky High School, because that professional art gallery in a way felt like it was a little elitist, where there were a lot of IB students and there were less, and in the IB program, which is a very highly respected program, there are not that many students of color. And most of Schenectady High School is students of color. And we usually celebrate the diversity and everything, but that wasn't reflected in that art space. So we decided to get a bunch of artwork from people whose work is usually celebrated by other students and who we love and who we thought whose stories and perspectives should be shared. So that was a great experience and a great success. I think that was the most students who had been in that art gallery space in like years.
Great. Thank you so much, Jayla, for sharing your work.
Thank you.
And next, I'd like to introduce Adam Tinkle. Adam is the director of Skidmore College's MDocs program, and he's here to tell us a little bit more about projects that the college has been supporting and things that are coming up in the near future, and ways for our community to get engaged in some community art for social change projects. So welcome, Adam.
Thank you so much for having me. Happy Martin Luther King Day to everyone. This image that I'm Adam Tinkle. I teach at Skidmore College, and I also run our documentary studies collaborative there, which is an academic program. Students can study documentary making, but it's also a hub for documentary making in our city and in our region. What you're looking at is an image from a Martin Luther King Day celebration that occurred, I think, three or so years ago in the visitor center across Broadway from the Art Center, where students in one of our courses, a photography class, took a bunch of photos of Martin Luther King Day related stuff, including a march that happened in town several years back. And this is just part of the work that we do. You can move on to the next slide. In community, a big part of what we are interested in and are growing our support for is what we call co-creative documentary production. That's co-creation is like collaboration, but maybe a little more so, where we do deep work to bring together artists and community groups and causes to try and figure out what documentary materials would be most useful to people's causes and work. The image on the left is a filmmaker, Aggie Bazaz, who was working in collaboration with the Saratoga County Economic Opportunity Council and their Estamos Aquí project. She made a 3D 360 film that has circulated internationally. On the right, you have students making a film in collaboration with Sheridan Hollow Alliance for Renewable Energy. That's a community group in Albany's Sheridan Hollow neighborhood that's fighting the expansion of a gas-fired power plant that dumps soot onto their predominantly black and brown neighborhood. You can go on. So we not only create these documentary projects with our community partners, we're also really committed to exhibiting them with our community partners. Again, you're looking at a Daisha Devon Harris's class in Saratoga Visitor Center, celebrating the opening of their Honor King and Racism exhibition. You're looking at us at the Albany Barn down in the lower left-hand corner with Albany County legislator Mert Simpson and other folks from the the Sheridan Hollow Alliance for Renewable Energy, with whom we put up an exhibition about environmental justice issues in the capital region and around the country and the world. And then up top, that was our collaboration with EOC, the Economic Opportunity Council, and Cafe Lena, where we presented that 360 documentary that Aggie created, that highlights the experiences of the backstretch workers and other Latinx workers through this 3D 360 filmmaking medium. So that's what those boxes that people are holding up against their faces. They're, for most of them, watching a VR headset film for the first time, and it's a VR film about Saratoga and social issues that are happening here. Can move on. So mainly, I'm just here to let you all know that we're embarking on this big initiative to do more work in the vein that I've just been talking about. This is funded by the Andrew Mellon Foundation for the next 4 years, and we are seeking collaborators. Those could be artists, loosely organized community groups, organizations with formal status of some sort, individuals with a cause or a vision. And we're going to try and bring people together into what we're calling collaboration clusters to develop projects. You don't have to have a project cooked up, but maybe an interest in being involved in art for social change in our region. And that process will begin in March. It's not going to be a formal call for proposals. Instead, it's going to be this effort to bring together different kinds of folks who might or might not have a background in any kind of media making or documentary making, but a hope to get involved with that kind of work. So if you want to learn more about that, you can email us at mdocs@skidmore.edu, or I'll drop this link in the chat. We have a page all about what the co-creation initiative is going to be and do. So that's all I've got to say, but I hope that some of you will reach out to us.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Adam, for sharing. I'm going to stop sharing my screen for a moment. And at this point, we're going to open it up to questions from our attendees or the artists about specific projects, or if you have questions about social art, art for social change in particular. So you can go ahead and type those into the chat. And I also want to mention briefly here in a moment, I will drop the links in the chat for contacting each one of our artists if you would like to collaborate with them in any way. And part of the reason that we titled this Start a Conversation is that we're hoping that this launch of this year-long series of projects will start conversations among artists and community members about, specifically in Saratoga Springs, what types of community art projects for social change we would like to see. There aren't very many of them up in Saratoga, and we're really ready to embark on using our voices to make some social change up here. So the effort was to show how artists in the rest of the Capital Region have been engaging in that process with the hopes of learning from them and from hopefully having some guidance from them. So Jade and Marcus and Shayla have offered, as well as Adam, have offered their expertise as artists to guide projects that we would like to see happen up in Saratoga County. So if you're a viewer, if you're an attendee of the program today, and you have ideas for community art projects, we'd like to start that conversation. And I also just want to let everybody know to keep an eye out for the Saratoga Springs Library and C.R.E.A.T.E Community Studios offering opportunities over the next year for small community art projects that everyone can participate in. Some of those will be larger mural projects, and others will be take-home projects that families can do safely within your household or within your neighborhood. And we're going to find ways to display those projects publicly so that everyone can see. So we want to make sure we're following COVID protocol over the next year with this project. We hope that it'll be safe for people to gather later in the year and do mural projects together, but you will have lots of opportunities to make art on your own individually and within your communities. So I have my first question for the muralists. Can you describe your process for securing a location and how you would go about doing that? So maybe we'll go to Jade first, if that's okay.
Yeah, it's fine. So I actually work with a few partners. One's actually, I believe, is in here. I work with Tony with the Albany Center Gallery. I work with the Albany Barn, and I work with Youth FX. And within this, my partners help give me leads onto organizations such as the Albany Housing Authority, the Albany Downtown Bid, the Troy Bid. With those connections with these, Redburn Development Company, with these connections to these housing development organizations or corporations funded by the state, and knowing some of the privatized and building that relationship with some of the privatized development companies such as Redburn, it makes it a little bit easier to find spaces. And a lot of times, sometimes I'll just go out on my own and do a call out with organizations that I feel like have the same intentions or have the same goals and missions that I do. Maybe not with art, but maybe a broader, more community social aspect of it. And I would just be like, hey, do you have a space? Here's a program I'm doing. I give them the overview of my program. And if they're interested, they'll find a wall for me. So it's usually working with like all the bids and the development companies, and sometimes just going out and asking and seeing a space that you may like, and just talking to the person who may own the building.
Great. Okay, I'm not seeing any other questions yet. Eileen, have you developed any questions? Anyone else from the panel have questions for one another?
I have. One of the questions I had was, have you gotten any pushback on any of your projects or been surprised at any of the reception with some of the projects that you've done?
With myself, with Amplified Voices?
I think that's probably open to anyone if anybody has had that experience.
I have. It was my senior year when I was president of Roots, and we organized a like sort of talent show where we had a bunch of different students, just like perform different acts, but it was called Thanks to Black People, and that actually got a lot of pushback from the administration. But it was just a show to fundraise, so at the end of the year, students who are part of Roots Club, we could actually just go on a trip to SoFi Farm, which I'm sure like some groups in the region are familiar with SoFi Farm, which is really lovely. So, but we did get a lot of pushback, surprisingly, from a lot of quite a few teachers, white teachers and members of the administration for the title, and some students for the title Thanks to Black People. But once it was actually, performed, we didn't really hear anything. So, I don't know. Some things do, but I think when people see the effect of what you do and the ripple effect of it and the impact, things get very quiet and everyone's like, so I would say just keep doing what you're doing.
Yeah, I would also say similarly, I've had definitely far more positive than negative, but like Shayla, oftentimes, if you have something that centers Black people for whatever reason, there are individuals who take it as a negative against white people, which it's not. Highlighting Black voices and people is not a repudiation of everyone else, but there are those that will read it that way. Funny enough, though, it was largely positive, like really largely positive. It's just one individual that I think is around. I would see around Troy a lot, and they commented a couple times on saying stuff like, "Why are all these thugs on the wall?" And it was the type of thing where I think for us as artists who are sensitive about our stuff, to paraphrase Erykah Badu, that one negative thing can stand out sometimes more than all the positive. But I very much do have to say that I think this moment we're in right now, as all moments, but this one especially, I feel like it is a time for courage and for speaking truth to power. And the arts for me are my main way of doing that. And so there's pushback, but I think that we have to, if what you're doing is correct and is coming from the right place, then I think you need to see it through.
We received another question that I think piggybacks nicely off of that. And that question is, how can white allies participate in Black-led art initiatives in a useful way?
Help find funding and money. I do have people who may not be Black or brown who do work with me on Amplified Voices, but there's a respect that maybe handling maybe logistics or the heavy bulk work, but let me and my mentors really focus on the kids and really focus on the youth and really focus on the programming and strength and making it as strong as it can be for the community members. Whereas I'll have some of my partners who, again, are not of color, not all of them, you know, they'll pick up the bulk of like logistics. How do we get funding? They'll take that stressfulness and that, you know, where we have to put so much attention in that and take that a little bit off the plate. So it gives me more time to focus on the community and the important things and not being bogged down with trying to capture funding, grants, you know, sponsorships and dealing with the social media thing. So just that, I feel like just being there to support, it helps a lot. But that's just me.
Yeah, I think, sorry, just real quick, I was also going to say, I 100% second that. And yeah, it's that word support. And I think we all in our own ways, like, you know, marginalization there's obviously many different marginalized groups of people. So for instance, I've been in situations where as a man, if it's supporting, you know, like an effort for women or, you know, LGBTQ people, I'll not try to let my, you know, male voice dominate. You know what I mean? You should be cognizant of the fact that whatever group is being represented can use your support, but they also need to not be spoken over.
Yeah, I would agree on both those parts like 100%. And like, if you're where the money resides, then put your money towards the community that you say that you're supporting and want to support. Like, basically, if you can show up in a way that's not taking up space that is needed for marginalized folks where they haven't been able to take that space before, then, you know, leave that space and support how you can support. And like I said, if you're where the money resides, just slide the money.
Great. Thank you, everyone. There's a couple of questions about inspiration. So I'll sort of combine them. Where do you get your inspiration from? And have you ever had someone comment on your work that it inspired them or informed them in a new way? And how did that impact your work going forward? So I guess the two-part is, in general, what inspires you, and also what have you had interactions or exchanges with others that have then inspired the work or changed your work in different ways?
For me, just I draw inspiration from, I mean, it sounds cliche, but just from everything around. Definitely, I think like everyone on the panel, people who have used their voices creatively for change or activism. That's something that's inspired me from a young age, and I try to carry that forward. But just like life in general, I listen a lot. I'm you know, and I observe everything that's going on around me. So I'm always taking things in that inspire me. And what was the second part? Basically,
the second part of the question is, have you ever had someone comment on your work that it inspired them and has or informed them in some new way? And how did that impact your work? So this idea of an exchange with someone else, you know, being inspired by your work and how it may have changed your work from then.
Yeah, definitely. I have had conversations. I mean, I think I referenced earlier, even with some of the past mural projects, where I've met people later who, you know, maybe went on to do more with artwork. And that for me means everything, because I think I mentioned that I feel fortunate that there were people who supported me in wanting to be an artist. So any part I can play to make someone else want to, you know, realize their creativity, because like a lot of our fellow panelists who have talked specifically about bringing the arts to Black and Brown people, there's usually a lot less, opportunities aren't always made as readily available. And I'm very aware of that. So anytime, I see a young person where I see myself in that. I'm very much inspired to try to present the arts as a possibility, because a lot of kids don't even see it as a possibility. So for me, being somebody that looks like them, that can help people. And I think a friend of mine, Eugene, who I met when he was in high school, he's he's a part of Amplified Voices, and I know he's spoken to me about how I inspired him, but he's going on to do a lot of really cool, incredible things, which inspired me in turn. So that's one example, but there's many.
Another question.
Sorry.
Go ahead, Jade. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, with being inspired, I'm a little introverted, so I kind of live inside of a cave sometimes. But one of the art pieces and murals I've actually had some of the most positive comments from, with inspiration attached to it, was the mural I did on Broadway. I did a 60-foot mural downtown Albany on Broadway, and it is of a Black woman in nature. And I am a person who loves nature. I grew up hanging out in forests as a kid, just by the lake, skipping stones, all that kind of stuff, the majority of my childhood. And I didn't know how many, and I did that mural because I still crave that sometimes living in, New York does have a lot of nature, but within COVID and everything, it's been a little bit harder to get out. So I made that mural to try to get back in touch with those roots. And when I made that, a lot of other people felt the same way. They're like, yes, I miss when I was a kid and just, hanging out, in the backyard, or, there was a time, even my siblings now, I have 7 siblings, and my mom doesn't let them just walk outside the house and go, to a lake that's 15 minutes away or anything like that. I could just do that as a kid, just walk around the neighborhood and see things around without really any worries. And a lot of people also miss that. A lot of people miss being in touch with nature. A lot of people miss, having that be such a big part of their daily lives. And so I got a lot of positive comments from that, and people saying that they're going to try to reconnect with nature again, which I thought was amazing, because that's exactly why I tried to, that's exactly what I tried to convey with that mural. So I was glad that it actually inspired people to go back into nature and really find their roots in that again.
Wonderful. Shayla, did you want to add anything?
I'll say that it really inspires me when people show up as themselves and have the courage to show up as themselves, and just kind of like when they do that, like show up and like kind of stay in a way that they're enough, and when they're showing their creativity and expressing their creativity through that, it's like such a beautiful thing to me, like such an awe-inspiring thing to me, and I love celebrating that, and I love celebrating like life and their lives for that. And when I inspire someone, it was like when the first time like I kind of stopped reading poems as like someone else, or how I've always heard other people as spoken word speak it, but like it would just never like came out of my mouth naturally, or like I didn't feel comfortable and felt very out of my skin when like I tried to read it how I felt like I was supposed to read it. And one day I was just like, I can't do it. And so one day I just read at one of my friend's events a poem, just how I wrote it with my own voice. And then someone came up to me afterwards and was like, I've been in a real dark place, and like you give me a lot of hope, and like I hope you keep writing. And that was for the first time where like I felt like I actually had something to offer, like as my own authentic self, as my own voice, even if I didn't always see that voice, reflected in other works, or like I felt like my voice was different, so I wasn't comfortable with it. But then I was like, okay, maybe I do have something to offer, and it's something that should be shared for this reason. So, yeah.
I really want to get in this last question, and I'm also aware of the time. So what I'm going to do is ask the last question, and then I'm going to just share something for everyone to see who's attending. just so you can have the information of how to keep following what we're doing. But the last question that I have for the panel, while we're wrapping up here, we'll just have a couple of minutes, is why do you think that art is effective in the way it is in terms of sparking social change and starting conversation? So if you have examples, and we've heard a little bit of them in terms of the exchanges that you've had around inspiration, but any other thoughts about why art in particular is effective as a vehicle for social change?
I can do a quick answer. I know that I had a college class where there was, a lot of contentious discussions around social issues, in particular ones that dealt with race in class, but specifically race. And I had a kind of multimedia project that I had done at the time that really tackled it, the subject through both visual and poetry. And I just had this was my anecdotal experience, but there were two people in the class who particularly had been difficult in communicating with, and they had a lot of walls up due to their, I think, sheltered background and kind of an ignorance about people who were different than them. And those are the two individuals who, after hearing and seeing the project, came up to me and really wanted to engage in a way that they hadn't before. And for me, that was an early example of how people who in a conversational setting like had certain defenses up. But I mean, I think what I took away from that was that I might not have changed their lives forever, but I think that when people take in art, they can do it on their own terms. Maybe they don't feel confronted, and some of their defenses can be down. So I think there's something about art where you ingest it on your own terms, and people can be a little bit more open in that sense.
I think art also provides really special opportunities for people to work together,
Right.
just to making together. Somebody can be the main person in charge, the person with a lot of skill who designs the mural, but really looking at the work that Jade and Marcus, you did, and seeing, the design work, but then also the participation of large numbers of community members. I think that's something really special to name and remember.
Anyone else? Last minute comments or?
I'm good. I just hope to see more art programs and, really start building on that cultural equity and, just really starting to involve more communities into these types of programmings and maybe doing more smaller programmings. I found that doing a lot of smaller programming is sometimes a lot easier than those over large umbrella programmings that want to control everything. It's just like having such small little pockets of programming all over upstate. I'm just seeing such a positive effect from it because it's intimate work with these communities in pockets where you actually have to sit, talk, engage, learn about these communities versus just going in and painting it like a coloring book.
I did want to say, leading off, speaking of like creativity and community, I did start a Facebook page, Upstate Creative Corner, with my friend Otis, and just wanted to put it out there since this is a time that we definitely need community to get through the time that we're going through. And if you create anything at all and want to share and interact, it's a safe space to do that. It's Upstate Creative Corner on Facebook, and on the 28th, we're going to have a discussion about what we as a community can do in Upstate as creatives would like to see going forward, and how we can interact with each other as a community and hopefully get together in the future other ways. So, yeah.
Great. And Shayla, I believe that I included the link to that group in the chat for everyone to see. So for all of the attendees, I included information to contact our presenters today, as well as any of their Instagram or Facebook pages and groups where they may be producing art and sharing. And through C.R.E.A.T.E Community Studios, we'll continue to share work and information about this next year and programming for Art for Social Change that will include Shayla, Marcus, Jade, and hopefully many of you who want to jump in on working together as a community. I think that's a great takeaway. Adam and the rest of the panel mentioned that the power of it is really in community coming together to do this work, and that is our goal with these projects. So I want to just thank Jade, Marcus, Shayla, Adam, and my co-founder, Ailey Lopez, who didn't get a whole lot to chime in, but thank you so much for being some supportive wing person tonight for us. And we're really very grateful to the Saratoga Springs Public Library for hosting this event this evening. And please stay tuned through the library and through C.R.E.A.T.E Community Studios. You can follow us on social media and also sign up for newsletters from us to get more information about community art projects that we'll be sponsoring and hosting through the next year. And I wish all of you a very safe and healthy rest of your evening and Martin Luther King Day. And we also appreciate the MLK Project for including us in their annual programming. So thank you so much to all of our presenters. Thank you attendees for participating this evening. And thank you, Jen Ogrodowski from the library.
Absolutely, this was wonderful. Thank you all.